Welcome in to another episode of Board Talk. I'm here with a good friend, a fellow teacher, a 10K TF Maxi, Keegan. Keegan, how are you this fine evening?
Thanks for having me. Doing well, Phil. Appreciate the invite. Appreciate you having me on the show. Just want to help support, spread the good word, and uplift those that are doing some heavy lifting, some medium lifting, and those that are authentic, such as yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you being here. We've talked for a long time. We've known each other for a long time in the Web3 space, at least like 20 years in crypto years, at least
At
20 years.
least.
And obviously you are an educator yourself. You've done a bunch of teaching. You actually have the 10K TF Teaching Tuesdays. What is so important, or why do you connect so much with the education and teaching scene?
Yeah, I mean, so just a small background about myself. I was a classroom teacher for 10 years in the classroom. I taught English, academic language development, AVID, and physical education outside. So I was in the classroom and I saw a lot of different things and a lot of different styles of teaching and different learners. And then for the past year and a half, I've worked up at the district office. And so a little bit more managerial stuff, but I actually still have all my background skills, and it's very applicable for now. And one of the reasons why I decided to, kind of jump and start Twitter Spaces, which I've been doing since August 16th of 2022, is that I just felt like there was a need to kind of bring some more quality to the Web3 space. And I'm not saying I'm perfect or I'm great or anything like that, but I just was a little frustrated with some of the things I was seeing. And so I almost felt like it was kind of a duty for myself to actually try and contribute more and kind of give back, because I felt like what was out there was mediocre to average. And so for me, I've always liked to produce quality and try and give back as much as I can, because I think that this entire space is a super, super important thing right now. As it's continuing to grow and, branch out more to the masses, like, it's just very important to not keep this information secret. I think awareness and advocating for the space is super important right now, but we need to have the right leadership in place doing that. And so that's kind of what really prompted myself to kind of like start the Twitter Spaces every Tuesday. I've had no problem leading or talking and having discussions and dialogue. My last year for teaching in the classroom was actually during 2020. And so in California here, we were stuck online the whole time. So I was on Zoom for 3 to 5 hours per day, Monday through Friday. So you want to talk about live streaming, building community, like personalities, like lessons, guidance, I've been there, done that. So doing live streams like that for over a year, at that pace, at that level, I was operating pretty high, which I'm not sure if you guys had to do that where you're at, but doing Twitter Spaces was definitely for me a step down in terms of having to manage and organize and prep and, kind of like get the agenda going. And so for me, I just felt like all those skills I had acquired, I could definitely apply them to the Twitter Space scene. And for me, I really resonated pretty highly with 10KTF, just with the quality that they brought overall. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that with the storyline, and then some of the mechanics, and then the innovation, and then the community. It's just been a really special thing to kind of like take place and really see it grow, and actually grow with not only the project, but the community members, and have support from the actual team from time to time.
Yeah, I think that's been super apparent from literally day one with 10KTF, is that it's very much community driven, and very much like they were so focused in the best of ways in making sure that it was an event. Every week you had an event. Every week, everyone was going to come together. They're going to come in the Discord. And then out of that, birth these not literal thousand, but so many really high quality 10K TF shows that are happening every single day. Obviously, yours on Tuesdays with Teaching Tuesdays. I've been for a long time, before Yuga even was in the picture of acquiring them, I've been so impressed with just 10K TF and the fan base and the community, because that's exactly what it's been. It's been something that can, even if it's slow, even if you're rugged that week, it's all in good fun. And I just feel like y'all dissect things so fast, and there's a million speculative, thoughts, ideas that are like literally overtaking the community, which I think is awesome. Like, that's what they want. They're storytellers. they're great at storytelling, through the visuals, through what they do in the Discord. Like I've been in the Discord, not every time, but I've definitely experienced that with the music and the vibes, energy, and the community has just like eaten it up, and has been a massive asset to the team. Like I would say the reason 10KTF continued to, I would say like progress, this is, a year ago now, was because the community was driving a lot of this too. And the team is awesome, of course. But if you don't have a community behind you, we've seen this in the Web3 space. If you don't have legitimate community being built, you have no shot. Like you literally have no shot at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's one of the things that I started to notice very early on is that, well, I definitely critiqued a lot of different, projects and different things that I noticed, because I felt like I said earlier, I had so many repetitions from teaching online, and I kind of like felt like what worked, what didn't work when it comes to like the messaging, because you need to take into consideration, not everybody learns the same way. Some people learn visually, some people learn audio, some people learn through think, pair, share. Some people learn through project-based learning. And so if you're not accommodating all those avenues and you're just posting up a message in a Discord once or twice, people aren't going to know. Like you probably know just as well as I do, it takes a repeating of 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 times for stuff to stick with students. And so when it comes to something like an NFT project, it's like, if you're not covering all those bases, and if you're not present, like have like a regular presence often, people forget, people get sidetracked. And so I knew that being consistent was one of the key things. And so I felt like I started to see that very early on in with 10KTF, is that they were showing up every Thursday. There was little pieces of story. There was always something, and even though now it's like, sometimes there's people complaining, well, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. But really, when you kind of like look and see, I can tell you, like I have more than half of my other NFTs in my wallet that are not even doing that. They're not even operating per se. So that's one thing to really kind of like keep in mind, I think, is that when you start to like look and analyze the space and these projects, it's like, well, who's showing up, who's there, and who has a presence? Because if you don't have those people championing for you, like if they're not there advocating for you, whether that's your community members or the official team, people are going to forget, because the space moves too fast and the attention from individuals will jump from one thing to the next. So you have to not only have the attention and presence, but if you got to bring something cool or quality or something intriguing. And so that was one of the things for me, was just like a very intriguing project on top of the visuals, on top of the storyline, on top of the community. And so, I think they're one of the few projects that really can cover all those avenues and cover them really well.
Yeah, for sure. And that is the space. It's like the next shiny object syndrome. If you aren't doing something to keep them entertained, and again, it doesn't have to be mind melting things, but you have to do something with your community to keep them engaged a bit. Otherwise, they're going to find the next thing. And that doesn't mean the next thing will be necessarily better, but for that moment in time where they can get that attention, well, you just lost some community members to another shitty project, probably.
Yeah. And you know what? And it doesn't even need to be top notch great every time, but it's like, if you don't have a presence, people are not going to pay attention. People are going to forget, and people are going to just be like, all right, well, I guess they're doing something. And then before you know it, it's like nobody is going and out there. There has to be that ambassador. I felt like every project needs to have ambassadors, so that who's the face of the project, who's the face of VFriends, who's the face of 10KTF, who's the face of Pixel Vault, who's the face of Bored Apes. So like, you need to have the face of the ambassador to help champion your name and your brand, your project. And if they don't have that, well, you better be really bringing some value in some other way. And I think, like you just said, we've started to see some of these projects kind of like fall to the wayside, not to name names. But we've seen projects go from like super, super valuable, if you're looking at floor prices, to less than half of what they were at. And it's just like, it's unfortunate, but I think these are the repetitions and the learning, the hard learning or teachable moments, you could say, to try and make those adjustments so that, maybe you can navigate this in a more proper way and actually care and foster that cohesive kind of like camaraderie and community. And if you're not, then you know what? It's gonna do its thing, and it's not gonna do so hot, in my opinion.
No, I agree. And I would say it's actually a teachable moment for us as collectors as well, because one thing that, I don't know, kind of like slapped me in the face probably almost a year ago now, it's been a while, is I felt like I was spread entirely too thin. Like I was
Hmm.
trying to experience and see what all these communities were. And it wasn't because I was trying to flip everything.
Right.
I'm not an instant flipper. I was trying to be involved in so many communities. And
Right.
what I found was that I was then missing the things that I really, really wanted to be a part of, and that's just not
Yep.
with it, you know? Like it's way too thin of across many projects.
That was another thing too. It's like realistically, you can only, and this is another opinion I
Yeah.
have, is like you can only give attention to like 3, maybe 4 projects, like at an equal, like good level without starting to be spread thin.
Hmm.
And as teachers, it's easy to get spread thin when you're in the work setting, like very easily, you can tell with how many things you're juggling in one day and 1 hour. But for attention wise and for your projects, it's like, how are we going to have 100 discords? Are we really going into all these 100 discords equally? How many do you have right now? How many do you have
Dude,
right
I
now?
actually did a cleaning of mine. I think I'm actually
Oh,
down to about like 15 maybe.
that's pretty dang
I
good.
mean, still 15, which I don't even go to in some of those. But bull market, oh yeah, 100%. I had so many, I couldn't even tell you how many.
Yeah, exactly. Like, 50 to 60,
Yeah,
like I probably
easily,
have right now.
easily.
And that's not to say like, hey, you know what? It's good to have those ones because that could be your hub. Like that could be your avenue. It's like, hey, every Thursday we're gonna be in the Discord, or every Sunday morning we're meeting for coffee and tea or whatever. Like, but if it's realistically to go in there every single day and all of them, like you can't. And so, I think having them is great because it can be that hub or that conduit of where you need to go to. But, really you want to like give your attention to 3 if you're trying to give it like a really good amount of quality time.
No, I agree. And so, speaking a little bit more about 10K TF, my next question for you is so, those that maybe don't know, if you're new to the Web3 space, you're new to NFTs, Yuga Labs, which created Bored Ape, Mutant Ape, along with some other things, they acquired the team and the project of 10K TF. And so, for somebody that, and by the way, I'm a day one 10K TF person as well. I have a day pack and I've enjoyed the project for a long time, but I know that you've been in it much deeper than I. What was your initial reaction to the acquisition of 10K TF?
Yeah. So when I saw that take place in December of last year, I was pretty excited, and along with the whole community, because we had already suspected that at a pretty high level, I'd say, back when the other side first trip took place. And then we saw those glasses, which were Wagmi-san. So Wagmi-san is the main character in 10KTF. He's a master craftsman in New Tokyo, which is where the world takes place. And so when we saw that first inkling, like, hey, those are his glasses, and we connected the two, we're like, whoa, this is something. And so that was back in, I think, like June of 2022, right? Is when the first trip was.
Yes, it was either June or July. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we're talking July, August, September, October, November, December. So almost 6 months before the acquisition took place. But once that happened, it was just like, oh, dang. Now we're getting like the two forces together, and it could be like pretty unstoppable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because of, the due diligence, the quality control from top down. And, you can see who cares for the people and who actually wants to provide value and who's giving back. And so we've seen that not only with 10KTF, but obviously if you've been a Bored Ape holder from day one, you've seen a lot of different things come back your way. And I think that's really important. I think those are notes that a lot of other projects need to start taking if they haven't started to, because it's important. It's important to do things the right way, authentically, and for the individuals that are spending their time, spending their money, and spending like a lot of like their attention and their emotions with some people, like we get very passionate about these things. And so it's just, it was a really amazing thing when that first occurred back in December, because, we knew that these are two quality projects, and for them to come together like that, we could only imagine like what other things are going to come when you get the team and you combine them and the right leadership. I think you can do some pretty unstoppable things.
I agree completely. And as someone that I had both things, but I would say I was more of a obviously naturally Yuga Maxi.
Right.
We also, I feel like the majority of us at least, we could absolutely see the potential too, because it was taking, in my opinion, probably the best two storytelling crews and putting them into one. And so like for me, the best part about Yuga and 10KTF, which is now the same thing really, but it has always been the storytelling. It's been the journey within the community. And so like, why would you be bearish on adding more just absolutely top of line talent? And that's, I mean, right from the jump, I was super excited just to see, you know, Figgy and the whole team join in and take a massive role. Like he's the head creative director of Yuga now. I'm fairly certain. I think that's his role. And so like naturally he's going to be driving the story along with obviously the founders of Yuga, but like he is freaking driving this damn ship. And so like to me, I was instantly bullish just because for me, it's about getting the absolute best team. And it kind of felt like they had the affinity gauntlet, right? Like they're like putting all the freaking jewels in place to kind of like take control of, just not in an evil way, but just in a creative way where they're going to have all the right recipe.
Yeah. It's super important. Like I think as you and I have talked before, like leadership is so important in this space. And when you have good leadership, you can do amazing things. And when you do things the right way, you can navigate the ship in the direction it needs to go. And also you can take those turns when things are changing. You can shift and be dynamic, you know, it's not just a static thing. And so when you have the people that are really driving the bus or driving the ship, you know, you can do some really cool stuff. And to bring the community members along like that, which we've seen in different form factors, it's just a really unique kind of thing that's taking place. And I think we're really experiencing all this stuff in real time, you know, as we spend our time every day in this space. Some of us, you know, we're reading on the Twitter, we're on the Twitter spaces, we're in the Discord, we're seeing the messages. Like it's like a big story every day. There's something breaking, some news. It doesn't matter what it is. And so for me, that was another thing. Like in this space is like I started to notice myself when I first came into it in April of 2021. Shout out to Gary and Be Friends, because that's how I initially came into the space. But I started to notice my own human behaviors shifting. I started to move my attention into reading and knowledge and understanding as much as I could all the time. I was just like super intrigued with all the like dynamics involved in Web3, because I didn't have a background in development. I'm not a dev, I'm not an artist. And I was like, I don't know. I was never into crypto, so I never had any of the background. I was just a teacher. I had some skills, like I was able to build a computer when I was 12, and I was around and I saw 2 decades of technology, you know? I remember not having cell phones. I remember not having the internet. So like, I know what that was like. And I was very big onto online gaming when it first came into the fruition, if you will. But there was no streaming services set up. The infrastructure wasn't built out yet. But I used to play heavy online games, whether that was Quake 1, Quake 2, Quake 3, Doom 1, Doom 2, Duke Nukem, Shadow Warrior, like Battlefield 1942, 2142. Like I played all these games, Unreal Tournament, Counter-Strike when it was brand new, Team Fortress, Half-Life. Like a lot of these kids don't even know what those games were. Like I was playing those games heavy back in the day. And so I got to see how those dynamics of the interacting online, when you were playing 24-on-24 in a big, huge game of Battlefield 1942 with these common missions and objectives, I was like, man, this is really cool. And this was before really Xbox and PlayStation were streaming. So this was not like built out on that end yet. So this was the avenue for connecting in that form factor. And then obviously we started to see things like, you know, Diablo, World of Warcraft, StarCraft, and all these other games really take off over the years. And then we started to see the infrastructure of Twitch and streaming and YouTube stream, all these things, you know. But if I would have had that infrastructure back then, man, I would have been all online streaming and playing games and stuff still. But we're here now.
You would have never left the metaverse.
Yeah. So like, and so for me, that's why I was like, you know what? I can see the writing on the wall of how that was, and then how long it takes something. Like it took 10 years to go from a pager to a cell phone with a keyboard to like a BlackBerry to like a smartphone with apps to the iPhone to Android. Like it took that many years to develop, and now it's the norm. It's second nature. Now we use Uber. Now we use Lyft. Now we use DoorDash. Like those weren't always a thing. Like that wasn't always a thing to have, and I remember that very clearly. So for me, I could see this being another new thing. I saw the writing on the wall, and I was like, man, this is something where I want to spend my time. And so that's when I started to notice like I'm shifting my attention and my behaviors and really spending all the time here. And then I started to notice other people were doing that. People were always showing up, always coming and hanging out, always wanting to learn more, whether that started in Clubhouse, whether that was in the Discord, whether that was in the Twitter spaces. And so it's really started to like really escalate every couple months, I'd say, into a new thing. And slowly but surely, I think, people that were kind of really people that were invested in the crypto side of things, I think were kind of like maybe on the little down, if you will. And for me, I've never been a day trader. Like I said, I've never had crypto as like a background or anything like that. But for people, I'm sure that experienced some downfall with that, they probably are pulling themselves back a little bit. Sure. But for people that come into the space, more just like, hey, I'm more of an open mind, like myself. I just want to like learn and understand. I'm coming in for different reasons versus somebody, hey, I'm trying to flip and make money all the time. And so for me, I got no problem kind of like watching these things and seeing how they play out and kind of participating as much as I can, because realistically, I'm not a whale. I don't have tons and tons of extra crypto to throw around, but like I want to participate. I can't buy every single NFT, but I'm going to spend time with the ones that I really do like and do enjoy, and really talking to the people that really care, such as yourself.
Yeah, I think that will matter too. And it already is mattering. And so I think this is a perfect segue into talking just a little bit more about Teaching Tuesdays specifically. So you built this community around teaching and talking 10KTF, and you just mentioned the people that show up consistently. So you were able to curate a little community yourself with you on Tuesday nights. What's been your favorite part about kind of, again, curating this awesome community that wants to show up and talk about 10KTF and really the Web3 space in general?
Yeah, for me, it really comes back down to just sharing the information and creating awareness. Like I'm not compensated. I don't get paid to do that. I just do them because I think it's something important. And I also feel like it's something I'm interested in. Like everybody has to have their little outlet or their avenue where they like to spend their time. Whether your hobby is playing pickleball, whether it's, going to the beach and surfing, whether that's on the Twitter spaces. For me, like it works well. Like, and, having the teaching skill sets that I've used, from developing lessons to making an agenda to delivering with guided questions to really lead the conversation, it really just fell into place. And so for me, being a fan of 10KTF, like it's easy to talk about it. Like I could easily talk about it for hours on end with whoever has that same lens. And so for me, I just started doing it from that angle. It never felt like work. It never felt like, oh, this is busy, I'm stressed, or I'm tired, or I'm angry. It's like, hey, I can't wait to get there to talk shop, share ideas, see what's the latest, and then go over the storyline and really have discussions and answer questions for people that are newer. And because that's another variable that I think is super important, is that we can't just all stay in the same sphere of individuals. It doesn't matter what project it is. If we're not helping to bring and bridge so people can come in, we need to have those on-ramps for people to come in. And this is why I think teachers are super underrated in real life for how much they get paid, the amount of skill sets they bring day in and day out. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And so for me, I'm like, okay, I need to help contribute, because a lot of other individuals are not doing it the right way, in my opinion. Yep. And so even though it's only, like for me, it's an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours on a Tuesday, it's still something that I like doing. It's entertaining, and it's bringing value to people that you may not be able to find that information or knowledge somewhere else, because the thing is, this stuff is still being written in real time. Like we can't go and pull like, okay, let me get the rule book out and see, oh, what is the blockchain in Web3? Like it's still kind of like you have to go out and be proactive to find that information. You have to be on the offense to know where to look. Is this authentic? Is this real? And right now, there's individuals where you can go and talk to people at these in real life events, at these conferences, and in Twitter spaces, and in, different live streams, but it's positioning things the right way, because if they don't have those avenues to go and really get the information, then people are not going to come in. And so it's basically providing those pathways. And so for me, that's why I just decided to do it, because it's more fun and it's entertaining. And I think it's bringing value to some people that may not know certain things about not only 10KTF, but the whole space as a whole. because we can go back and look at like the history. Oh, how did Amazon start? How did Google start? Like, how did this happen with the internet and YouTube back in the 90s and early 2000s? Like, we can go reference and read about that. There's documentaries. You can't do that right now with what's happening here with full, like, there's some things you can go and reflect from like 2017, 2018 about how things develop with blockchain. But really, like, a lot of these things that have occurred has really, in my opinion, started in 2021. All these NFT projects were birthed at that time, a lot of them that have become a brand name or a cultural impact with individuals in this space. And the people that are here seeing it happen in real time, they know that this is something special, and they know that this is going to have some meaning and impact over the years. And so for me, that's why, like, I felt, okay, I also have a YouTube channel I started called Token Talk, where I interview different individuals in the space, different founders, different artists, from like Mamba, Tony Herrera, Frankie Nines, Gary Vaynerchuk, AJ Vaynerchuk, like OSF and Gabe Wise. Like, these are individuals that are here authentically, not just to come and take money and then just, hey, I'm leaving. It's not a scam. It's not a rug. They care, and they're spending time, and they continue to show up time and time again. And I do really think that 5 years down the road, 6 years down the road, people are going to look back and see who was here during 2021, building and actually caring and actually helping to foster this space in the right way. Just like when YouTube first started, there were those 10 individuals that did makeup tutorials or did unboxings. There's hundreds of thousands of people that do video channels like that now, but those original 10 people that were there, if they stayed in it, they probably became really big stars or really, really big individuals in that job or in that sector. So I feel like right now, while this is taking place, Web3 and NFTs, there's opportunity for individuals to really build something for themselves, for a brand, for a name, and to also create the value and the knowledge that people need to have as things start to grow more and more, and we bring more people in, because this space is not going to grow unless we're providing those pathways for people to learn, share ideas, discuss, ask questions. And so that's one of the reasons why I started doing the teaching Tuesdays, is because I wanted there to be somewhere where they could go to like learn the fundamentals, because we can't go from 0 to 100 real quick. We can't go from step 1 to 10 and skip those steps. We need to go at a progression. We need to go step 1, 2, 3, 4. We can't skip them. And if we do, that's when people get lost. And so I think that a number of other projects kind of did that. And that's when you started to kind of see some people taking a step back or not participating because it just got too confusing and there wasn't the right teachers there helping to provide the information.
I love that. And we'll just segue into the last little topic and dive into education and kind of the future of maybe what does education look like in Web3? What does it look like in the quote unquote, what we're calling the metaverse, right? Which again, there's a lot of different avenues that will go. And I'll be honest, I think some of that's already happening at a small scale when we're talking about Twitter spaces, when we're talking about all these conversations we're already having together across the world. But where do you see education fitting in to Web3 and how? I know before we came on air, I talked to you a little bit about Tiny Tap and Open Campus, and you had mentioned that you kind of stumbled upon that. And really at the base of it, it's Animoca partnering with Open Campus, and they have a massive $10 million fund to fund great ideas in education. But how do we bring education, which again, from educator to educator, we kind of know it's been sort of broken for a long time across the nation. How do you think Web3 can positively impact what education could be for a generation, the next generations of kids, young adults that want to, learn some new, like you said, you want to learn something new about dev work, tech work. How can we make it more impactful in Web3 and in the metaverse?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in what I've gathered is that, I think that for teachers, especially, and I know there's plenty of teachers per se, you and I just happen to have a formal background in teaching,
Yes.
teaching credentials, we practice what we preach. We're in the classroom, we're in the field, and there are people that are teaching and helping create awareness, which is super valuable in itself, And so for me, I see it as an opportunity where the teachers that have these skill sets can actually start deploying them and actually get really, they can actually really build a name for themselves to help spread the messaging in the right way and have validation and have some more respect and kind of like, I guess the way, how do I want to word it? I guess a little bit more of awareness of what teachers do and what they bring. So they're being acknowledged for what they can actually provide. And so I think they can provide the right avenues for the people to actually learn the fundamentals and the basics of what this space is. And I think they could do that probably better than just somebody who's like, hey, here's the document, read it. Or, hey, here's the post on the message, read it. It's like, you need to have the individuals there that are actually caring and fostering and scaffolding these things the right way. Because again, my other point is if you go too fast, too soon, people are going to get lost. Yeah. And so you need to make sure that you're doing it in the right way with the right supports. If you're not providing those supports, people are going to get lost. And so for me, as the teachers, I think that's where we can actually really implement our skill sets and help the individuals that want to learn. And so we could easily, like if I have more time, just build a catalog. Like, okay, I'm going to make these digital short clip videos. Here's the vocabulary we need to know. And here's how the vocabulary is used. And here's how it's implemented. And here's some examples of what that looks like. Like, we could do that. And if that's like, let's say, for example, on chain, or if we have our own videos, that's undeniable that's my face. That's your face. You're talking about it. All of a sudden, people will start to create that awareness and they'll pass that along to their friends. And that's how the word will get out. And it's going to take really some strong ground game and consistency. Like I was saying, having the presence before it really starts to catch on more and more and more. So it's like, oh, this is Phil, the teacher, or this is Keegan, the teacher, And I've started to run into a few different individuals. I mean, heck, like my school district paid for me to go to ETH Denver, and I was a speaker there, and I talked on accessibility to Web3 and NFTs. So it's just like, that's the kind of stuff I want to see. Like, I want to help be that voice. I know I can't have a presence full time. Like, I still work full time in education, 40, 50 hours. So for me, it's like, I just want to have a voice and be a vocal person who has the presence. Mm-hmm. And when we get vacation time, we can really do some fun stuff. And so for me, I think that if you and I stay in this and we continue to help each other and support each other, that we can really provide some value for not only the people that are here now, but the people that haven't even found it yet 3 months down the line. Yeah. For those, early adopters, the 21-year-olds, the 15-year-olds, the 16-year-olds, like those are the individuals that need to have the smooth on-ramp, because they're going to be the future in 10 years from now, once they hit 21 or 31 or whatever. And this is really embedded in all these brands and all these companies and all these things. And we're already starting to see inklings of that. We're already starting to see early brands position themselves, from Starbucks to Nike to Puma to Gucci to Adidas. Like, this is not like, hey, we're going to just like pretend. Like, when people put their name and reputation on something, that means a lot. And I think, like, just just as well as I do as a teacher, like, that's your name, that's your reputation, that's your brand. And so for me, a lot of this stuff has been easy to just shift it into this space. Going from public education, it was very like not insular, but it was kind of like structured in a certain way. Now I can take my skill sets and what I've done over the years and really start deploying them here in this avenue. And really, it can lead to different opportunities which you may never have had before. And an example of that was I was able to do a voiceover tutorial for 10KTF and Puma. Mm-hmm. Like, me, just as someone who's in education, by being here regularly, providing value consistently, like, has led to that. And, if I didn't have that presence, I may have never got that opportunity. And so that's why I feel, because this space is so new, anybody can make a name for themselves if they so choose to. And so for people such as yourself and me, I think if we're continuing to just provide little pieces here, little pieces there, a little bit can go a long way, is what I've learned. Yeah. Even just right now, like on my Tuesdays, I've been super consistent, like an hour to hour and a half. And over time, it started to make the impact, and I'm starting to get some traction and awareness for myself and for the teaching 10KTF Teaching Tuesdays. And so that's what I think is important, is that we hear authentically, consistently, and actually providing value, and not just going on Twitter Spaces for 3 hours, shouting and screaming about different tokens and different crypto things that are going on, or some drama. Like, there needs to be more structure, if you will, to provide some outlines and some guidance of where we're going, and not just like talking about drama and then back and forth, because anybody can do that, in my opinion. But not everybody can bring quality and at a decent level. So that's why I feel like I wanted to try and like be that voice and that guiding light.
No, I agree completely. Well said. I think again, it goes back to community. Like even when we talk about education, when we talk about bringing new people in, it's going to be because we've formed this amazing community, this foundation that people are now comfortable to come in, ask questions, learn, collaborate. These are all things we talk about every day in education. And I think it's like you said, it's a beautiful tie-in, and it will be imperative to bringing more people in is that they feel safe, that they feel like it's still fun. Of course, it's not going to be boring. We're definitely not boring here, but it's going to be safe, informative, and collaborative, and lifting each other up. I always say retweets are free. Like if people are doing awesome things in the space, jump in if you have a moment. Listen to what they have to say. Hit a retweet. Again, it doesn't hurt your Twitter algorithm if you're hitting a retweet on somebody that you think is doing something really, really dope. If it's a thread, if it's a stream, if it's a whatever it may be, they created an awesome piece of art. Hit it with a retweet. It's free. Because again, I think that support is imperative.
Yeah, ideally, like that's one of the things like I've kind of like started to think more about is like, well, how do we bring more people in? How can we find those individuals that are going to be willing to be open-minded? And then what are going to be the right things to say? Like, what's the like package deal where it's like, hey, here's the couple of things we need to make sure we hit before we move on to the next phase. And so, because sometimes you have individuals that they're not always open-minded off the break. Like you need to make sure you kind of like are baby feeding it and make sure it's like a slow little stepping stone. You can't go too fast too soon. And I think that's where we really need to focus on how do we bring the new people in, what's going to be the right path and at the right pace. And not everybody learns the same way. So that's where we're going to need to be able to help identify, well, what is the learning level of this individual? Are we at a level 2 coming in, or are they at a level 5 coming in? And then how do we take it to the next phase? And so, I think that more and more we're going to start to see like who really cares about this space and who's here and who's actually just here for a short time and wants to just like try and make money and then leave. And so I can say right now, like you want to play the long game, I can play a long game like no other, setting goals, setting objectives. Like I've been doing that. Like I was a marathon coach. I ran 11 full marathons. Like went through 2010 recession. Like this is like a patience game for a lot of individuals. And I don't think everybody understands that yet. And so as these things move slowly but surely, it's just going to take time. But these people are going to come, and our friends and family are eventually going to come when it's the norm. Just like when I said, hey, having Lyft and Uber wasn't always the norm, but it is now. It has been for a few years. And pretty soon we're going to get to that where it is the norm when we go into Starbucks or we go into any food place and it's like, oh, scan this for an NFT at McDonald's, scan this for an NFT at In-N-Out Burger, scan this at Ralph's. Like that's going to come after a few years, and we trial and error and work out some of these kinks. And the people that are here now, they're going to be the ones that actually reap any of the benefits, whether that's just awareness, financial compensation, branding, support, however it looks. The people that are here now are really the pioneers, in my opinion.
I think that's a beautiful place to end this conversation with that reminder that sometimes I'll be honest, I need the reminder too, but patience is a virtue. Like if you can show some patience and in that time, in that slow time, that bear, whatever you want to call it, if you're actually working to educate yourself, learn a new craft, be consistent with something you're already doing, like you said, long game, baby. There's going to be more people here, and you're going to want, if that's something you want to do, if you want to be someone that's, imperative in a project or you're like one of the best spaces host or whatever you like to do, show up consistently and be patient because it will come back around and then everyone will be doing it and we won't be thinking of it as the big bag of NFT space. That won't even be a conversation. It'll just be the norm.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I mean, I think that's just something to keep a reminder of. Like there's individuals that don't even know what Twitter Spaces is. Let's put it that way. Yeah. That's what I found in my field testing of talking to other educators at the school sites. They're like, oh, I didn't even know Twitter Spaces was a thing, or I don't even use Twitter. So it's like, if you don't have the pathways that are the foundational pieces, how can we have those creative conversations and discussions if we don't even know the basics yet? So
first step. That's the thing. We're not even at the first step yet.
Yeah.
We're still so early, as they say. So I just want to say thank you, Keegan. Make sure that you check out Token Talk, as well as, of course, you got to take out the t-shirt, 10K TF Teaching Tuesdays. Man, swing in, gather some knowledge, come up on stage. Keegan and the whole fam there do an awesome job of welcoming people up on stage. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you're new to the 10KTF ecosystem, or maybe you're not even in it yet and you just want to know a little bit more, come up on stage, ask a question. I'm sure Keegan will answer it in the most wonderful way. DM him, or you can post a question during the space. These are all things that we're willing to do because we want to uplift the space. So again, take a look at Token Talk, take a look at 10KTF Teaching Tuesdays, and of course, follow Keegan. His deets are in the details of this episode. So any last, I do have one last question for you, and it's a fun one. Who the fuck is Marshall Howen? That's my question for you.
Who is Marshall Howen? You know what? Hopefully we're going to find out pretty soon here in the next week or two, but he's a character that we don't know if he's good. We don't know if he's bad. And I think that's on purpose because they want to keep the story close to the chest. But I think that we're going to see some collaboration in some way in order to kind of move the storyline forward. And so whether he's a friend or a foe, I think we're going to have to see some working together to kind of move things along. And, I just want to say, congrats on all this movement that you've been doing and helping to uplift the space as a whole. I know you're very vocal about different things that we can help build and help bridge for the community in a bigger picture. And stop in every Tuesday, 10KTF Teaching Tuesdays, usually at 6:15 p.m. Pacific. I still got to work, so sometimes it's a few minutes off, but I try to be consistent about showing up. And if you have questions and you want to learn about Web3 or NFTs, we always cover that. We cover usually 3 pieces of news articles that happened in the past week. We have a guest. We'll have Community Corner where I'll highlight different threads from different community members. And then we have just a discussion about what's happening in the 10KTF storyline. And, really that's where we can have some really thought-provoking dialogue. And, I think that it's important to learn and ask questions. There are no dumb questions. And whenever you can, check out Token Talk. I'm going to try and do more interviews over the next few months. But I've really been focusing on the Twitter Spaces for now. So thanks again for having me, Phil. I really appreciate the support and having me on. And I'd be more than happy to help build whatever it is that you're cooking.
All right, Keegan, I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks.